This is Optimal Relationships Daily, episode 934. I'm Scared My Kid Will Get Introvert Shamed by Jacqueline DeForges of introvertdear.com. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Optimal Relationships Daily, the podcast where I, Greg Audino, narrate to you each weekday from blogs and books that specialize in relationships. Thursdays and Fridays are saved for parenting content specifically, and we are sticking to the plan. Today we'll be featuring a post from introvertdear.com about the fear many parents feel about their children being bullied or shamed as they grow up. This is a super relatable post that will help parents and show them that they're not alone in this concern. So let's get right into it and start optimizing your life. I'm Scared My Kid Will Get Introvert Shamed by Jacqueline DeForges of introvertdear.com. It's a Thursday afternoon at the splash pad. The air is thick and humid and filled with the joyful screeching of toddlers and big kids as they chase after each other, getting sprayed with streams of ice-cold water at every turn. I'm hiding under my floppy sun hat, sweating and silently wishing we were running around with them. Instead, my 18-month-old daughter and I are crouched down on the gravel path nearby, inspecting tiny rocks and creating tiny piles. She's completely focused on her task. She has a vision in her head, and left to her own devices, she'll spend the next half hour working diligently to bring it to life. I am learning to follow her lead as she pulls me towards rocks and flowers instead of play areas, away from crowds of children instead of towards them. The alternative, picking her up, putting her in the place I want her to be, and watching as she turns and runs in the opposite direction, well, it's not exactly effective. My mother tells me she is exactly the same as I, a card-carrying introvert, was as a toddler. She's miserable in crowds, happiest surrounded by family, and shows absolutely no interest in other kids, aside from a strange mix of horror and fascination as she watches them from afar. Part of me is thrilled at having created another being like myself. Now, at 27, I think I'm pretty great. But a much bigger part is terrified that she'll have to go through what I went through to get here. Years of bullying that culminated in some seriously awful self-hatred that persisted into my early 20s. Introvert shame. It's a thing, and it starts early. Even now, at 18 months old, people come up to us and say, "Wow, she's so quiet." And she's not. You should hear her screech, "Yay," when I tell her we're en route to Grandma's house. You're just a complete stranger, and you're standing way too close. I lurked on a mommy message board one day and saw a post that read, I absolutely kid you not, "My 1-year-old son doesn't like playing with other kids. Do you think he'll grow up to be a social outcast? A loner?" Loner. When I was a kid, it was the most terrifying label you could get stuck with. By middle school, the taunt, "Can't you talk?" had begun to follow me wherever I went. Class after class was group projects, oral presentations, picking partners for gym, and desperately wishing I could stay in the library and read at recess instead of milling about with groups of other preteens. It was the worst. And you know what? I wasn't even actually that weird. I was a pretty normal kid, aside from the fact that I'd rather read than kick a ball. I always had exactly 2 close friends. So while I skirted along the edge of lonerdom, I never quite fell in. There were plenty who had it far worse than me and still do. We're experiencing a cultural renaissance of introversion right now. There is Susan Cain's heaven-sent book, Quiet, The Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking, the first book I ever read about introverts that wasn't trying to fix us. There's the irritatingly lovable Sheldon Cooper on The Big Bang Theory, who does his laundry on Saturday nights and only attends parties when bribed with nerdy presents. There's JOMO, Joy of Missing Out, in response to FOMO, fear of missing out. There are even helpful infographics on Pinterest for extroverts to help them better understand our strange behavior. Social media itself, it seems, was designed for us. We can work and socialize and network from the privacy of our own homes, all while extroverted folks panic about the death of telephone calls and real-life conversations. Maybe it's the fact that I'm an adult now and rapidly getting too old for angst. Maybe it's that I've carved out a life for myself that celebrates the core of who I am, facilitating writing workshops filled with other introverts. Whatever the reason, when my extroverted husband gets home from work, I happily declare that it's introvert time and let him take care of our kid while I hide in the bedroom for half an hour and read. And I feel zero guilt, zero self-hatred, only relief. But still I'm scared. Scared that while the media may have caught up with the rise of introverts, the school system may not have. Scared that my kid will someday feel torn in two directions between the things she actually wants to do and the things she's expected to want to do. Scared that someday she'll be standing in a crowd of teenagers trying to figure out what the heck everyone's talking about. And someone will sneer and ask her, "What's wrong with you? Why are you so quiet?" I don't know if my daughter will end up being an introvert, but if she does, I hope more than anything that she can be the kind of person who's proud of herself. I hope she can grow up in an environment where she's valued for who she is and not held up against some outdated expectation of how all kids are supposed to be. And if she ever gets asked why she's so quiet, well, I hope she can come up with a witty answer. Lord knows I've never been able to. You just listened to the post titled, "I'm Scared My Kid Will Get Introvert Shamed" by Jacqueline DeForges of introvertdear.com. And a big thank you to Jacqueline for opening up and for, most importantly, being open about the fear she has that many young parents share, whether they're raising introverted children or not. Though what Jacqueline really has working to her advantage is that she's been there herself. Her fear is that her daughter will face a similar childhood, not one that she herself is unfamiliar with. So for Jacqueline and any parent out there who might fear the worst for their child, it's a great opportunity to start preparing them. Don't only prepare them for what to expect or maybe what to say in certain scenarios, but also instill the knowledge in them that you've attained as you've gotten older. Knowledge about individual strengths, knowledge about how priorities will change, knowledge about the many different types of people in the world and how they can all thrive in different ways. These may feel like big concepts, but they're within the realm of understanding for a child as long as the messages are relayed the right way. If this is something you have a hard time doing as a parent, perhaps seek the wisdom of a child psychologist, a behaviorist, or even a school counselor for how to do so effectively. And that is going to wrap us up for today, everyone. Thanks a bunch for joining me, parents, and for making another episode so special. There is more parenting content coming for you tomorrow, courtesy of Shauna Scaife over at Simple on Purpose. So come on back to hear some of her humor and experience tomorrow, where your optimal life awaits.